is Kyle here with Eden's Vine. Welcome back. Today we're going to be removing some potentially diseased vines and a dead vine. I'm going to show you guys how to do that real quick. Okay, first tool we're going to need are some pruning shears. I'm going to go ahead and have this on hand and ready just in case there are any small canes or shoots I want to remove, or some smaller cordons I want to remove. Next thing we're going to have is we're going to go ahead and have a little saw here, and that's going to help us remove the trunk that may be a little bit bigger for some loppers. And my trunks are a little big right now, so I'm not going to use any loppers today. I do have a machete here just in case there's anything around the base of the dead vine that I want to go ahead and take out before I get, down there in the trunk. Okay, so here's the vine, and I went ahead and marked it with red tape. I saw it earlier in the season. I wasn't too sure how it was going to look as we progressed through the season. Right now I can tell that its neighboring vines don't look like it, and as you can see, its neighboring vines are really green. There's good foliage, good growth on the canopy. And so here we're running into some problems. I'm not sure exactly what the problem is. Could be viral, could be something else. It's got characteristics of a few different diseases, so I'm not going to concern myself too much about the specific disease. Again, if we want to do that type of work, we can go into viticulture, do some research and try to figure that out, and maybe help us down the road with some interventions that can prevent this. But today I'm not concerned about that. The only thing I'm concerned about is getting this vine out of here so that these other vines don't get any type of disease from it or become affected by it. Okay, and so I'm going to go ahead and start off with my my pruning shears here. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I want to start top down on this vine. If I take out the trunk, the vine's going to get a little wobbly, and I just don't like doing it that way. So I like to start top down when I'm removing a vine, get everything off that's up here, and then we'll remove the trunk after we remove the cordons and the canes. So I'm going to start over here, come in here, and I'm just going to cut this stuff off. And I want to watch out for my other infrastructure. I don't want to clip my irrigation line here. I don't want to do that. And sometimes with really sharp pruning shears, you can end up cutting through this wire, and depending on the gauge of the wire, you can snip it right off and give yourself a world of problems. So you want to stay away from this, and you want to definitely stay away from your irrigation line. So I'm going to cut a little higher. We're just going to take these off. I'm just going to put them on the ground for now. And then after that, after I get everything off and on the ground, I'll run it over to my burn pile. And out here we do burn, but you just got to be careful of where you are if you are going to burn. I've got some friends out west. They don't burn because they burn something, they burn the whole vineyard down. So you just got to be really careful if you're going to burn. Out here it's a little wetter, and so we can get away with burning. Now this other vine's in the way, but it's not in the way of me removing that dead vine there, or diseased vine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off a piece of this cordon, and you can tell there just wasn't the same growth on it as these other vines. I mean, this is a really long shoot, or turning into a cane that's coming from another vine. So anyway, I'm going to throw that down, and the rest of this off, cut off on the ground. And now we're getting to where we're removing, we're going to start removing the cordon, which is this part right here. We got the trunk, we've got the cordon. So we're going to remove it. And these may not be big enough. So, a pair of loppers would be nice, but I think this vine's going to come out. And I've already removed some of the cordon where it was wrapped around that trellis wire. So I've already removed it. So now my vine's freely moving. So I'm not too worried. I can just bend this down if I need to get it out of the row or if it's getting in my way and irritating me. So there we go. Getting all my plastic off. I'll clean this up at the end. I'll make sure I have it all picked up. And that stuff's just called trellis tape. And there, look, that vine was dead anyway. It broke off right at the bottom when I pulled it. See, it was dying. So I need to get it out of here because I don't want it to mess with what's going on around it. Okay? All right. So now we got this one at the bottom. And I'm going to take my foot and just push on this and see if it's dead down there. Now, the reason it's likely not dead down there is because that's actually a different vine. It's called rootstock for those of you that are familiar with it. What we saw is the scion. Here, this big ball is the graft union, and then down there, that's a different vine. That's called rootstock. And one of these times we'll talk about the different rootstocks I've got out here. But all right, so I want to get that below the dirt, and so I'm going to come in here and use my little saw. And you can use other things, like I've used a machete. And I've got a machete sheath on right now. I've used a machete. They don't really work the best for this. They work better for like removing stuff and overgrown weeds that may be around your vines. Fortunately, we don't have that problem here. I've also used hatchets and axes. I wouldn't use a chainsaw on something like this because you've got a lot of metal out here. And I try to stay away from the power tools on something like this. If you have a battery powered like pruner or something like that, you might get away with it. Hedger's too small for this purpose. I'm just going to take this and I'm just going to saw through. On the back cut is where you're strong with this thing, so. And that's it. Now I'm just going to make sure that's buried the best I can, and that's it. All right. And this is just give credit where credit's due. These things are awesome. So get you one, enjoy it. All right. Move on to the next vine. We almost forgot to clean up our trash. Let's go ahead and do that now. Just want to pick up all this little green tape. We don't want to leave that behind. One of the things I actually use to pick up green tape in my vineyard, believe it or not, is just a pooper scooper for a dog's, for a dog's scat. You just get one of those pooper scoopers with the handle and the little tray bins at the bottom, and so you can stand up the whole time you're picking up this kind of stuff. All right, it works really well. All right, next vine, same thing. I've already got the canes removed here. I did that with my pruning shears. Now I'm going to work to remove those little plastic ties. And another option you have is just as you clip them, keep them if you want. It's a little bit slower, but depending on how many vines you have, it might make more sense to do it that way. Now again, I'm not tied up, so I'm not going to be too worried about it. And there, it's already out. This vine right here, it's free from the cordon and its wire here. Okay, so I'm gonna see if it'll break out. Again, this was a diseased vine, and you want to be a little careful when you're doing this. Probably should put these in my pocket. Okay, and that's why you want to be careful, because that'll, if you got a sharp end or something, that's not gonna feel too good. So seeing if it'll break out of there. It won't. So it's not quite in the shape that the other vine was, but it was still ready to come out. So now I'm going to take my silky again, focus on the fat cut. All right, now it's out. Now, some cool things you can do with this is I made like bird perches and things out of it. You know, I made like little crosses out of it where I cut it up, and then, you know, you can make like a little cross. You make like little decorative pieces, especially out of like big wood like that. You make some decorative pieces to trim out like a picture frame or something. Does some really cool stuff. So you might want to burn these, or you might want to try to figure out some artful thing you can do with them. All right, next thing we need to do is we need to get all that debris into our burn pile. All right, here we go. Tractors are really nice for this part if you've got a lot to do. All right, and there's my burn pile. Oh, and if anybody's wondering, these vines here were Syrah. So, you know, that can kind of help you with disease identification too, because some of the vines and some of the varietals are more susceptible than others to certain types of bacterial and viral infections. So this looks like a virus to me. You guys let me know what you think. All right. Now here we are with one of our dead vines. Now, you know, I don't really know what killed this particular vine, because everything around it looks really good. So, you know, I kind of suspect there might have been some herbicide stress on this particular vine. Not from me, obviously, because look. But we do have farmers and ranchers around here that do spray. But, you know, it being in the middle here, it's kind of a mystery, because the other vines should have shown some of the same stress, but it did show a lot of herbicide stress. So I'm not really too sure what happened with this one. I did leave these on here because I was munching on the raisins just a little bit, you know, every once in a while, but now they're pretty much mummies. So we want to get all of this out of here and to our burn pile, and that's what we're going to do next. All right, now as I said, sometimes you can have a weed problem down here. Now I don't have too much of a weed problem, so I'm just gonna take my hand, and the ground is real soft. You know, be sure to time your activities in the vineyard and in the garden or wherever you're working well, okay? Because that just came right out of the ground. However, in mid-July, that's not coming out of the ground, okay? And again, the ground's real soft. We just had a nice little rain. I've waited a couple days since that rain because I don't want to be covered in really dark mud that doesn't come off. So again, timing can be everything in the vineyard. All right, same process here. We're going to take off our cordons. We're going to take off our shoots, cordons, trunk, okay? And we're going to watch out for our infrastructure. We want to watch out for our wires. We want to watch out for things that may cut us. So these pieces of rebar can be real sharp, real sharp. We use them to train our trunks up, but they can get real sharp on these edges. You don't want to run your arm across it. If you're worried about that, gloves, long sleeves are a prudent decision. Also, when you're cutting this, you got to watch out for your clippers. You don't want to get your hand in there. They are sharp. They will get you. All right, and if you noticed, we've got another problem out here. We've got these little mummies. We either want them in the middle of our row, and we're going to till them in, chop them up with our mower, something. We want to manage these. These have a lot of fungal diseases in them, a lot of fungal spores that'll spread throughout the vineyard. We want to get these out of here. I'm going to try to collect as many of them as I can and take them to my burn pit. but I also have the option of tilling them in. So some of you may not have that option. If you have a small vineyard and a little rotary tiller, you can use that. If you've got a tractor and you till, you can use that. If you think you can get them chopped up real nice, you know, with some sort of tractor mower or mower, you can try that. The best way is to get these into the ground or to get them into a burn pit. And I'm going to choose burn pit today. And they're just, if you notice, they're decaying, and so I don't even have to use a tool. They just come right off. So I'm just gonna pile them up. You know, that one's still a little wet. There are some raisins on it, but just get those off. I'll get them piled up and I'll try to get them out of here the best I can. And that's another thing, guys. Like, I'm gonna cut on this, and if this cane doesn't pull out, if it doesn't pull out, I don't want to keep pulling on it, because that could mess up my trellis wire or something else I've got going on. I want to get it up a little higher and make some additional cuts, and then get that stuff out of the way. If I have to make more cuts, that's fine. I don't want to damage my trellis. That's a lot more work. If you damage the trellis, you got a lot more work to do. And it might be some work that you have to get to as soon as possible. You know, depending on the time of the year, you might not have the luxury of waiting to fix that trellis issue. And actually, right now is one of those times of year where I don't really have the luxury of messing this up. If I mess up a trellis wire, I think I could really create some problems for myself. So, I'm not saying I will. These aren't really my sharpest set, but they'll do the job for what I'm doing right here. And I'm removing dead vines, so I'm not too worried about these being dull. If I'm cutting on clean vines, like the one over there that looks good, I don't want to use these. And in fact, I want to clean these and sharpen them up before I go cut on a vine like that. All right, and as you notice, I didn't even have to cut on this. Came right out, okay? And that's typically what you're gonna see. The trunk just busted, exploded right off of there. So that's what you're typically gonna see when you see a dead vine, is the trunk's gonna break on you. It usually doesn't create a hazard, but the trunk, depending on where it breaks, the stump that it leaves behind might be a little sharp. Here, there's no stump like it. Oh, there it is. All right, let me show you what this looks like. All right, so here's the stump. It's a little hard to see, but it's right there. And it does have some, like, that's a pretty sharp edge right there. It's not too bad, but I'm just gonna bury it, you know, just bury it. You can cut it a little lower, get it cut a little lower, but that one broke off pretty low. But sometimes they'll get these gnarly little breaks, and yeah, you're gonna want to deadhead that off. You don't want to leave that gnarly break there. It's a hazard in the vineyard. All right, guys, next thing we need to do with that particular vine, that dead vine, is we need to get it over to our burn pile. So I'm going to carry it on out of here. All right, guys, that was fun. Not too big of a project today. Most of the vines are looking healthy, so there's nothing else to pull out today. That last vine that we pulled out that was dead was Sangiovese. If you're not familiar, it makes like a Chianti. Really nice grape for us out here. It consistently produces, so we're happy with Sangiovese out here. You do have to keep the black rot off of it, though. We might talk about that at some point. Last little bit, or last word about the trunks and the canes and the cordons. The trunks and the cordons, if they're big enough, they make excellent enrichment for animals, guys. If you want to cut them up, use them as a stick for your dog to fetch. If you want to cut them up, and sometimes you can turn them into like little enrichment devices for parrots, like parrot perches. You know, you got to have a little woodworking skill for that. Maybe sometime I'll show you how to make one of those. If you want to cut them up very carefully, you can make some nice little arrangements out of them. If you get really long canes, you can make wreaths out of them if you want to weave them together. If you've got lizards, snakes, little mammals that you keep around your house, I don't have any of those, but if you do, you can make like little enrichment devices for them to run up and down and have a good time on and play with. I've also taken some of them and made like little, you know, I've taken the bark off of them and smoothed them out a little bit and made like little, you know, scepters and tridents and little like pretend toys for my daughter. So they're really fun. You don't have to burn them, you don't have to let them go to waste, but you know, sometimes a nice little campfire, bonfire is a fun thing to have, and we like to do that in the winter time too. So I get it. If you just want to push this to the burn pile, go for it. However you use them, or if you don't, that's fine by me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching. Come back and visit us here at Eden's Vine.